Hey, it's Snacks and Princess. No more? I want to apologize for my raspy voice, but that's not going to stop me with what we're about to do today, and that's checking out this BenQ 4K 144Hz HDR monitor. This is part of their Mobiuz line. I believe it's called the 2710. Oh, it's the EX2710U. Such complicated naming systems for their monitors. Like for example, LG, we have the GN950B, not to be confused with the GP950B, but I mean, you guys get the idea. So if you guys watch my live stream, you guys know the monitors that I use. I use an Alienware AW3423, sorry, 3423 DWF. And for 4K, I use my LG Ultragear GP950B. For the Alienware monitor that I have, so that's an ultra-wide OLED monitor that I have, so it wouldn't really make sense for me to compare the two. But with the LG one, they're actually a direct competitor for BenQ, so it'll be fun to compare the two monitors. This little angel right here is Princess. Someone's jealous down here. Okay, so what's in the box? What's in the box? All right, let's do this one by one. So first off, we have the remote control over here. I love this, very useful. We also have the USB cord and the HDMI 2.1 cord right over here. So, what's next? We also have our DisplayPort cord and our power cord. Set this aside. What's over here? Oh, we have the power supply. Now I wish these weren't so bulky, but it is what it is. And then we have the back cover and I think a warranty card. So we're done assembling it, and that was pretty straightforward how we did it. We have the base over here, and then we attached the stand. You guys saw that there was already a built-in screw, and then we just plopped in the monitor, like we clicked it in. Now let's take a look at the adjustability. So with this monitor, you could put it up, down, then you could put it aside, side to side, tilt it forward, tilt it back, forward again. So it's kind of like the last Mobiuz monitor that I reviewed on my channel, and at the back there's really no knobs that you had to do, and you don't really have to put in that much effort in moving the monitor around. It just locks in place instantly. Alright guys, my voice is better now, thank goodness. So let's take a look at the design of the monitor. Let's start with the back. The back is wide and it's got a very sleek and clean look. It has the 4 LED light bars that flush out the symmetry, and on top is the Trevolo speakers. The stand is fairly sturdy, it's got a great look and feel. The base has this gray and red color and is reminiscent of the Predator monitors, for better or for worse, depending on your preference. Overall, I really like the look and feel of the back. It's really clean, and personally, I like the flat contours and angles. So on the back, you also have the inputs. We have the 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, great for console gaming with that extra bandwidth. Of course, we have a display port and 5 USB ports along with a headphone jack. Still no USB-C port, and that's something that I like to see. Moving on to the front, I really love the thinness of the side and top borders. It really helps clean up the overall look of the screen and front of the monitor. On the bottom right, you have a shortcut button for quick access to HDRI. In the middle of the bottom bezel, you have the sensor for HDRI. And on the left side is the BenQ logo. They did go with a gray color for the bottom bezel, which I think gives it a completely different look as the back. So to me, it's kinda weird, or dare I say, slightly puzzling. I really wonder how it would look if the bottom bezel would have matched the color on the back. I have a feeling it might give it a more premium feel to the front. But to be honest, I'm not too bothered. After all, we don't really see the back and I don't use the stand anyway. I also love the idea of the shortcut button on the front of the display, but personally, it's just not the button that I'd use the most often. So when I first started this review, I had a couple of weeks with the BenQ monitor, and I've already had a couple of months with the LG monitor. But then I got just so busy with a lot of projects that it kept getting pushed from weeks, and then it got pushed to months. But you know what? Looking on the brighter side of things, it works out, because the problem with a lot of these review videos is that most reviewers can only give first impressions on them, and now I can say that I have spent a lot of time with the BenQ monitor to give my sound, unbiased review on it. And it's a total of 9 months. 9 months with the BenQ monitor. So now, here we are in the summer of 2023. Okay, so let's start off with the specs of these two monitors. On paper, they're virtually identical. They are both 4K monitors with HDMI 2.1. They have the same color accuracy on paper. I mean, the Ultragear can overclock the refresh rate to 160 Hz. But I mean, let's be honest, I wouldn't really be able to tell the 16 Hz difference. So the past 9 months really enabled me to discover all the little nuances and differences, and there are a ton of things that are just beyond tech specs on paper that aren't so obvious. But first, let's start off with the more obvious things. Let's go with viewing angles first. So as you guys know, IPS panels typically do well when it comes to viewing angles. But it's really hard to capture on video what the human eye can see on these reviews. So I'm gonna do my best to talk about what I see in person. So here we are looking at the LG, and around 30 degrees off center is when you start to see a little bit of inaccuracy. And around here at the 50 degrees off center is when you really start to notice and you lose that color and contrast accuracy. Aside from that, it's also when you really see the weakness of this monitor exposed too, which is the reflection handling and the black uniformity. And we'll talk more on that later. Now, moving on to the BenQ, I mean, it's the same thing. It's pretty accurate also, but to be honest, in person, I found the viewing angles to be much better and wider. And you really don't start to lose the accuracy until about 10 to 15 degrees later than the LG, which is great. Keep in mind that for me, viewing angles don't matter as much because I'm only sitting in one position because I use these monitors for my streaming setup. But if it matters to you, viewing angles is definitely something you should consider. So a while ago, I mentioned about the poor black uniformity and bad reflections, right? And unfortunately, that's just a weakness of IPS panels. So I kind of just didn't think about it and never really paid attention to it in the Ultragear. But you know how once you pay attention to something and see it, and then you can't unsee it? So yeah, that's what happened to me, because once I got the BenQ and started looking for it, I noticed how the black uniformity and contrast weren't the best on both monitors. Slightly more so maybe on the LG, but the reflections were especially bad on the LG. I mean, in a darker room, the reflections were a little bit better, but that's also when the black uniformity on the LG was much more noticeable. So in this category, I'll have to give the edge to the BenQ. So I've got here my lag tester. Now this sends a signal to the monitor, and it's this blinking part right here. And it also has a sensor so that it can sense just how quick the signal is going to the monitor. And if we get anything less than 10 milliseconds, that's gonna be great. Under 50 milliseconds is okay, but we're aiming for less than 10 milliseconds. So okay, this is the lag. Let's put the sensor over here. Okay, we've got 9.2 milliseconds. Okay, now it's time for the BenQ monitor. Moment of truth. Oh my god! It's faster than the LG monitor. It's at 8.4 milliseconds. Nice. Now, realistically, you won't really be able to tell the difference, but it's cool. I mean, you get to see right here just how quicker the lag time is. 8.5, 8.4, yep. So next we're going to see just how bright these monitors can get. Now, I didn't have the best way to measure the overall peak brightness, but I was able to at least send a standardized signal to both monitors to compare them both. Now, I found that the PS5 HDR brightness calibration screen was a good way to compare between the two. So I have both monitors all maxed out to their brightest settings, and for the Ultragear, we get 634 lux, and on the BenQ, it's about 1,000. So BenQ wins! So look here guys, I have the same signal going to both monitors and I'm pushing down on the brightness settings. You can see on the LG, here, so you can already see the symbol. So let's see how many steps until we see it on the BenQ. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, there, see? 8. It takes 8 steps. So both monitors did a pretty good job with minimal motion blur and ghosting. So to test this out, I used a motion test using the pursuit camera method. And this one was actually a really fun test to perform. And after getting the hang of it, I was able to get some fairly decent test results. Now this category was super interesting for me and I learned so much that I plan to make a separate video just to cover this category alone. But long story short, I did find that the BenQ and the LG monitor were performing pretty similarly with minimal ghosting and no significant motion blur. Now the BenQ monitor was performing better at first, but that was before I figured out that the LG monitor's response time setting was set on the lower end. So, you know, I actually blame the toggle menu of the LG monitor because that thing annoys me so much that I hardly ever explore the menu setting of the LG monitor. Alright, now let's check out the menu, but before we get to that, I just want to talk about how much I love this remote. It's so convenient. I mean, you guys can see my setup. With these two monitors, they don't have remotes. I have to toggle the menu at the bottom of the monitor, but with this one, it's just so convenient for obvious reasons. This is a closer look at the remote. We have the power button, the input button, the toggle, the HDRI button, the game mode button, the brightness, the menu button, the audio, volume up, volume down, and mute. So let's take a quick look at the menu. So when you press on the menu button, you're going to see the quick menu. At the topmost part of it, you will see the input that you're on. Right below it, the color mode, which we'll encounter later on, so I'm not going to toggle this anymore. And then below that, you have the light tuner, the AMA, also known as the advanced motion acceleration, which controls the response time of the monitor. And then we have the brightness, and then we have the menu, which you can go press so that you can expand the menu options even further. Then going back, the quick menu, which lets you choose which mode you want your monitor to be on, if it's standard, game, or cinema. And then we have the different color modes. So this was something that we saw a while ago with the quick menu when you first press the menu button. So these are the different modes. Now the color on the screen does change depending on what mode you're hovering on, which I like because then you'll get to see what is being conveyed on the screen instantly. Okay, the menu disappeared, but going back, so we have the game HDRI color mode, and of course you can fine-tune these as well, like from light tuner, color vibrance, brightness, contrast, black equalizer, sharpness. The monitor basically surveys or analyzes the environment that you're in and adjusts what you see on the screen accordingly. So for example, if you are in a brightly lit room, your screen is supposed to adjust accordingly so that there won't be a strain on your eye that much. So previously with their last firmware, you couldn't adjust the color vibrance of the HDRI mode for both the games and cinema. But now with the new firmware update, you can do that. Game HDRI, and then the submenu of that again is color vibrance. So that wasn't there before. You couldn't access it in the previous firmware, but with the current firmware update, you could do that now. So why don't we go ahead and try to adjust. So we're all the way up to 20. Now everything's looking very saturated, so I'm just gonna put that back down to where it was a while ago, which was 10. And then we have the audio, the speaker. The monitor does come with speakers. You can adjust the volume, the audio mode, or you can mute your monitor altogether. Comes in handy when sometimes I just want to play a game without having to connect everything else to the speakers. And then you can access your microphone as well, but I don't have a microphone attached to my monitor right now, which is why we can't hover over it. And then we have the lighting. Now the lighting is the lighting for the back of the monitor. And then you can even choose the different effects that you want. Single, you can breathe, make it breathe. Spectrum, countdown of 120 seconds or infinite. Morse code. Then we have the system. So for the system, you have your HDMI setting, and then we have the on-screen display settings, then auto power on and off. If you are not using your monitor anymore, it just turns off automatically, helps save power. LED indicator, the display, RGB PC range, HDMI CEC information. The information just shows you what input you're on, the current resolution, optimum resolution, HDR, if it's on or off, and the model name that you have, and we are using the EX2710U. Colors on both monitors had great accuracy, and I think both monitors are excellent with great color volume in both standard definition as well as HDR. Out of the box, the LG was pretty good, so I never calibrated it, but after calibration, it was even more accurate. The BenQ was more accurate out of the box, and the post-calibration accuracy for both monitors were super impressive in both HDR and standard definition. One note for those who are more familiar with color spaces and color gamuts, I wasn't able to test the WideDirect 2020 color space, so I can only speak for the DCI P3 color space spec. Overall, both are pretty amazing when it comes to color accuracy, and you can't go wrong with either one. Okay, so final thoughts. I like both monitors, but it's slightly frustrating to see that they've both stood their ground on the $799 mark. Now, if you game in HDR, I believe the BenQ monitor is a no-brainer because it has a lot more options and more versatility. But if you're like me and you just want to be able to see the colors of the game the way the developers intended them to be, I'd have to say that both the LG and the BenQ were pretty similar. But if I had to pick one, I'd say I had a better overall experience with the BenQ monitor because it had better ergonomics, it had a smoother experience, and it slightly had a better reflection handling and blacks. Now, there are a couple of nitpicky complaints I have about the BenQ monitor. The first one is being how the cables go in at the back. Now, they don't go in at an angle which forces the cables to bend at the back. And the other thing is I wish it had a USB-C port. Another thing we have to talk about is the price. For $200 more, you guys can get yourselves an OLED. But with that price, you are stuck with 1440p instead of 4K. But honestly, with OLED's performance of infinite black levels and incredible motion handling, the gaming experience can be just as good, if not better. So personally, and seeing what else is out there, these monitors have to get their prices down to $700 or even below that to really move the needle. So those are my final thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had so much fun making this tech video, and I hope to make more tech related content in the future. If you guys have any comments, suggestions, leave them in the comment section down below. Again, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and maybe you could share this video to someone who's contemplating on getting this very same monitor. It might help them. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.